It was the last week of August, 2025. In Minneapolis, summer was fading into autumn. The air carried a hint of coolness, the kind that whispered of the school year ahead. At the Annunciation Catholic Church, families gathered for a familiar tradition, the back-to-school Massachusetts. It was a chance to bless the new year, to pray for safety and guidance, to watch children, dressed neatly in their uniforms, fidget in the pews while parents smiled with pride. Inside, the stained glass windows glowed in soft reds, blues, and golds. The priest spoke gently at the altar. Wooden pews creaked as parishioners shifted in their seats. Parents held hands with their kids, teachers sat among students, and the choir prepared a hymn. It was a scene of peace, of faith, of community. And then, the first shot. At 10:41 a.m., the silence shattered. A single crack tore through the sanctuary, sharp and unmistakable. Heads turned toward the windows. Confusion flickered across faces. Some thought perhaps construction, or fireworks outside. But before anyone could form a thought, two more shots rang out in quick succession. And then, the glass exploded. Stained glass windows that had stood for decades burst inward, raining jagged shards over pews and floors. Sunlight poured through the jagged holes as smoke filled the air. And with it came chaos. The bullets entered before the screams began. Near the middle pews, an 8-year-old boy collapsed against his mother. A single round had struck his chest. His mother screamed his name, her voice breaking, as she clutched his small body, blood blooming across his shirt. At the front, a 10-year-old girl dropped suddenly, her white dress turning red in her father's arms. His panicked sobs echoed louder than the gunfire for a brief, terrible moment. Children shrieked. Parents dove over them, shielding tiny bodies with their own. Some tried to run for the exits. Others froze, paralyzed by terror. The air was filled with screams, prayers, and the relentless pounding of bullets smashing into stone, wood, and flesh. While the congregation fought for survival, the attacker remained outside. Robin Westman, a 23-year-old former student of this very school. In her hands, an AR-style rifle. At her side, a shotgun and pistol. Every one of them legally purchased. She fired through the stained glass with chilling calmness. She didn't enter the church. She didn't need to. Her bullets found their way inside, tearing through the sanctuary that once felt untouchable. On her weapons, hateful messages were scrawled, "Kill Donald Trump." 6 million wasn't enough. And the names of past mass killers, etched like trophies. On one magazine, in bold black ink, were the words, "No going back." The church became a war zone. Wood splintered as bullets punched through pews. Colored shards of glass cut into faces and arms. Smoke from gunpowder clouded the air, stinging eyes and throats. Children wailed, their small voices piercing the din. One parishioner described the moment later. "I grabbed my daughter and shoved her under the pew. My only thought was, if I cover her, maybe she'll live. I didn't care about myself anymore." The priest, frozen for a moment at the altar, dropped behind it, clutching the cross in his trembling hands, whispering prayers between bursts of gunfire. A group of older students tried to drag younger children toward the side door, shielding them with their own bodies as bullets cracked overhead. And in the chaos, one boy, 13-year-old Endra Gunter, fell to the ground, clutching his stomach where a round had torn through. His friends screamed for help, trying to drag him toward safety, blood smearing across the church floor as they pulled. Robin switched weapons. Rifle. Shotgun. Pistol. Each time, the cadence of fire changed. Rapid cracks. Thunderous booms. She wasn't firing randomly. She aimed high, then low, adjusting her angle with each round. She wanted to hit as many as possible. For 6 minutes, she unleashed terror. 6 minutes that stretched into eternity for those trapped inside. And then, Just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. One final shot rang out outside the church. A different sound. A heavier thud. Silence fell. Parishioners remained crouched, trembling, afraid to lift their heads. Parents clutched children close, whispering prayers. The priest slowly peeked from behind the altar. The gunfire had ended because Robin Westman had turned the weapon on herself. The shooter was dead. But inside, devastation lingered. The first police cars screeched onto the scene. Officers stormed the grounds, weapons raised, prepared for an active shooter. But what they found outside was Robin's lifeless body, surrounded by her arsenal. Inside, the scale of the tragedy became clear. Blood on pews. Shattered glass covering the floor like confetti from a nightmare. Parents screaming for their children. Paramedics rushed in, stepping carefully over debris and blood, triaging victims on the spot. The 8-year-old boy, gone. The 10-year-old girl, gone. 2 tiny lives extinguished before they had even begun. But there was still hope for others. Endra Gunter, 13 years old, was rushed into surgery. Weak from blood loss, he whispered to his surgeon before the anesthesia took hold. "Pray with me." Those 3 words rippled far beyond the hospital walls, a reminder of courage amid horror. Another child, 12-year-old Sophia Forchaz, had been struck in the head. Surgeons worked frantically, removing part of her skull to relieve swelling. Her condition remained critical. Her fight for life was just beginning. Dozens of other children, cut by glass, pierced by bullets, bruised from falling, were carried from the church on stretchers. Their faces pale. Their clothes stained red. Their innocence forever stolen. As victims were stabilized in hospitals, investigators swarmed Robin Westman's apartment. What they found painted a disturbing picture. Videos of her handling weapons. Long rants about hatred for Catholics, Jews, minorities, politicians. Pages of journals filled with rage and despair. She idolized mass killers. She studied them, learning their methods. She wanted to join their ranks. One entry read simply, "They'll remember me." And now, they would. News spread within hours. The headlines screamed. Mass shooting at Minneapolis church. 2 children dead, dozens wounded. Shooter identified as former student. Outside the church, candles and flowers piled up. Families wept together. Vigils were held nightly, the flicker of candles illuminating tear-stained faces. National leaders arrived. Vice President J.D. Vance. His wife, Usha. They met with families in private, offering condolences, but even their presence could not soften the grief. Parents clutched photos of lost children. Survivors asked why. Minneapolis was left to mourn, and to question. Why was Robin able to buy 3 guns legally, despite her obvious instability? Why weren't her disturbing online videos flagged, her manifesto discovered sooner? Were there warning signs her family, her neighbors, her community had missed? And the hardest question of all, could this have been prevented? The Annunciation Catholic Church was closed for weeks. The sanctuary scrubbed, repaired, restored. But the memories could not be erased. Children who survived now feared walking into school. Parents flinched at loud noises. 2 funerals were held for the children lost. Tiny caskets lowered into the ground, as entire classrooms wept. For the survivors, the trauma lived on in scars, in nightmares, in hospital rooms where recovery was long and uncertain. And for the community, the shooting became a wound that would never fully heal. The Annunciation Catholic Church shooting lasted just 6 minutes. But in that time, 2 children lost their lives, 21 others were wounded, and a city's sense of safety was destroyed. Robin Westman, a former student-turned-killer, had planned her attack meticulously. She scrawled her hate on the very weapons she used to carry it out. And in the end, she claimed her own life, leaving behind questions that may never be answered. This was not just an act of violence. It was an attack on innocence, on faith, on community. And it leaves us with a haunting truth. Even the most sacred places are not safe from hate. In memory of the victims of the Annunciation Catholic Church shooting, August 27, 2025.
Saved me though, because he laid on top of me, but he got hit. And I hope he's good in the hospital.
That the shooter had time to be released on YouTube. That content has since been taken down.
Investigators say the video contains weapon inscriptions with hateful, disturbing messages targeting blacks, Jews, Hispanics, and President Trump. The investigation is also digging into writings from what seems like the shooter's journal, including sketches of a church and rows of pews. The FBI says the case is being investigated as domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics.